So welcome to a demo day. My name is Paula, and I am going to talk to you today about how to finish your knitted projects and how to block them and what blocking is all about. So I'm going to start with showing you about some supplies that you need, and then show you actually how what a difference the blocking makes. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'll share with you how to let's see here. Oops, sorry, let me just fix this real quick. There we go. Then I'm going to show you, actually we're going to do demonstrate blocking, and I'm going to show you a bunch of photos of some how to demonstrate or to show you how to block a bunch of different items, like different shapes and things like that. So first I'm going to start with, let me change. Oh, I thought that I could do this, but let's see. Okay. All right. So now what I have here is thanks to Jenny, who works in the shop here. She has made two shawls. It is called, let me tell you what it's called. It's a really cute shawl. It's called Reina by Nora Leibola. I don't know how to say that. And she's made these two shawls with our Ba yarn, the La Jolla Ba yarn. And so what we have going on here is this one laying down here has been blocked. And so you can see that once you block your work, it helps open up all of that lace holes. And you can see, let's see, speaker view. There we go, sorry. Okay, so you can see how it opens up all of your little lace holes here, and you can see that better. And here's one, the same shawl that's just off the needles. It hasn't been blocked, and you can see it's just, it looks fine. It looks nice. She knitted it very beautifully, but it doesn't really show off that lace section quite as well as it does here. So I'm going to try to get you two views together so you can see that. So how this one you can really kind of see through it. It's going to open up. And so that's what blocking does. And blocking is just basically washing your garment. Sometimes you pin it, sometimes you don't. It depends on what you're blocking. And washing it and letting that yarn just relax and show all of your stitches. It will also help even out you know, if you have some loose things or some tighter areas, it might help even it out a little bit. But it just makes your garment look really nice and finished and real pretty. So there's some basic supplies that you need for blocking. I have my project here laying on some blocking mats. We carry in the shop some blocking mats. Here they are. I'll zoom out a little bit so you can see. And the nice thing about these is they hook together so that you can make it whatever size you need. And I'll be honest with you, this has 9 mats in it. You'll need 2 sets to make it big enough to do what you want. Like, so you can just make them long and narrow for a scarf. You can build it out square for a sweater or some bigger projects, but I found that 9 was not enough. So by having 2 sets, I could block just about anything I needed to block. And they fit together real nicely. The next thing you'll need is some T-pins. And we carry T-pins here in the shop. I'm also going to show you about these knit blockers. These are super nice because they allow you to, it has multiple pins on one piece. So you can really pull things out and use multiple pins at one time. So those are really helpful. Those are a really nice treat to treat yourself every once in a while. I think you would want a couple sets of those as well. We also have soak is what we carry in the shop. I like the soak because it doesn't, this one doesn't have a scent. Sometimes we have some with scents, but this one doesn't have a scent, but it also, you don't have to rinse it out. So it's really nice because you can soak your stuff and then you don't have to rinse it afterwards. And then let's see, a tape measure or a yardstick sometimes is really helpful. And I think that's all of the supplies you need except for a basin here. I don't know if I can show the basin under here. We have these basins here in the shop and they're really nice because you can just pop in anything that you want to wash and let soak, but you don't have to necessarily worry about your sink being real clean. And so I love it because I can do things a lot more quicker because I don't have to like clean the sink first and then make sure I got all this comment rinsed out of the sink before I can start blocking. And all I do is just take my tub, I stick it in the sink, I fill it up with water, and then I just can leave it and soak and not worry about it. So I really do like the basin. Now I'm going to use a smaller basin. That's because that's the one I have at home. We have these big basins here in the shop. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is take your basin and you're going to want to put some water in it. It doesn't take a whole lot of water. It depends on how much you're blocking. So here's my basin, and I usually use like tepid water, not hot, not too cold. Now, so that's usually about what I use. And then it really just takes a small drop of the soak. So I'm just gonna, well, that was probably too much. That's all you really need in here. And so the key is you're gonna pop your garment in. Oh wait, before I pop my garment in, I wanted to show you. The thing you need to do before you block your garments is you want to tuck in all of your ends. So I have an end here, and this is, I'm sure this is our right side marker. So I know this is the right side of my work. And what you want to do is you want to tuck in your ends on the wrong side of your work first. There's lots of ways to do this. The key is just making sure that it goes far enough that it's not going to come out. And I just like to, like, there was just a little gap right there, and I like to close up that little gap. And then I'm just gonna find some purl bumps to weave this in. And I'm just gonna weave this in. I usually do it, I probably do it a lot more longer than is necessary. But I always like to make sure it's gonna stay in. And so I'm just randomly going in kind of a bit of a diagonal direction. This doesn't have like a perfect row of purl bumps to go in per se, but I'm just going to kind of weave in these purl bumps. I'm just going to go a little bit farther here so that you want to, before you block, weave in all of your ends. Get those all taken care of. And then I like to just come back a little bit on that section I just did to secure my end. Then I'm just going to clip that off, and I like to leave, if you leave about an inch or so when you clip off your end, that way as you block it, it will like adjust itself in there, and then after I block it and after it dries, I can cut this off. So all right, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to place this in my water. Now this is a wool yarn, and wool is kind of water resistant. You can see it even it's just floating there on the top. So you really want to push it down into the water, and it's good to let it soak for about 10 to 15 minutes. We probably won't give it quite that much time today to soak, but you really, especially when you're working with wool, you want to make sure it has enough time to absorb that water, because wool is naturally water repellent. So, all right. I'm just going to move this out of the way for a few minutes and let it soak. You have any of those towels behind you? I forgot them. Thank you. Right. And while that's soaking, I'm going to share some blocking techniques with you. So that you can see, I'm gonna come back to my computer here. And I'm gonna share my screen and I'm gonna share some pictures with you and kind of explain about blocking. So you can see sometimes you do things that are long and straight. This is actually a circular piece, so it's sewn together. So I actually have 2 layers there, but you can see like I use a lot of pins, so that's pinned like every inch. I don't use pins on everything, but I do like to use pins on scarves or anything with lace to kind of let it stay where I want it to stay. Then also, I just learned a cool little trick when you're blocking a piece that has like it's infinity like this. You can put like one of those pool tubes in where it's laying over on itself, and then that way you won't have a crease on the end. So there is one idea for a scarf. That's on a different board I have at home, and if you don't have lines, I just use a ruler or a tape measure to help keep it straight. But I do kind of like I would pin this straight in a line, so try to keep my edges straight. This is just a really small bookmark, and it's just a little lace piece. Again, you can see how many pins. I probably use a lot of pins. That's why those knit blockers would be really helpful, because you can use a lot of pins at one time. I just have tons and tons of T-pins now, and so I use T-pins. I know lots of people like to use those knit blockers. Here's another lace piece I did, and this is like, so I can take these boards and I can make them long and skinny. I can make them wider and to fit any pieces. This is also a lace piece. This was a very large lace piece that I actually didn't block. I didn't wet block it. I pinned it out the way that I wanted it, and then I soaked it with a spray bottle. I sprayed it with water, and I kind of pushed the water down into it as I blocked it, so that I can, if it's just a really large piece to get wet, and if you do, then it would probably stretch out a little bit more than you would like it to be stretched. And so by just using that to pinning it first, you can pin it first and then push that water down to block it. And there's a little bit of a closer view on that. Again, I have pins in this one about every inch. This would be a really great project to use. What are these things called? Blocking wires. Bobby loves blocking wires. I for some reason, not a huge fan of blocking wires, but blocking wires make it easy. I might have a picture with this, but you could definitely take and put blocking wires along this. You would put it in every like stitch on the edge, and that way then you would use a lot less pins, because you could just pin the wires where you would want them, and it actually allows you to like stretch that piece out really well by using the blocking wires. So here's another example of this lace project. Has all these little points on the end of it. And so I don't really any reason you need to pin them unless you're trying to get them to a certain measurement. Now you can see on the very top of this doesn't have a finished collar, and it rolled just a little bit. You could definitely take and put some pins right there along that collar to make that lay flat so it doesn't roll. This is cotton yarn in the sweater, and so it might still roll when you take it off, but when you pin wool, it will actually stay how you pin it until you wet it again. It'll stay pretty well. This is a hat. I actually finished this hat in the car in the middle of a very horrible snowstorm. We were kind of stuck for a while on I-70, but I just threw it up on the dash and took a picture of it. And you can see it just doesn't really look very good. Here's another picture of it. You can block hats on balloons. So this hat, I wet the hat and I blew up a balloon. The key is don't blow up your balloon too big because it will really stretch out your hat. I did actually have to stretch this hat. My color work was a little bit too tight, but it was, but make sure like you could measure the head and you could blow up your balloon a little bit less than your head measurement. That way you're not stretching out your hat too much. So I just have that sitting in a bowl and I have the hat on a balloon, and you can see how after just washing it and letting it sit, it just looks so much better than it did in that first picture where it was just kind of, it helps even out your stitches. I don't think so. Let's see here. This is just a headband. Again, I just laid it out, washed it, and just let it dry. There really wasn't anything that needed to be pinned on this one. This is actually goes in a circle too. So what you're seeing is it's a double layer sitting on itself. Here is some little hand mitts I did, and you can see I did try to pin the edge where it had the lace, and then it had this little picot bind off. So I just put a little pin in each of those picots so it would stand out straight, but they're really, again, not everything needs to be pinned all the way around. It's pretty easy to just determine where you need pins and use pins. This is the scarf that goes with that. It's a full lace piece scarf. And I took a close up so you could see how it really opened up when it was pinned out. But again, that's why those boards, you can move them around, make them real long for scarves. You can make them square. They're really helpful. Again, that piece is pinned. Another really great example of where blocking wires would be really useful to use and much less pins would be required. Here's another scarf I did, and on the one edge on the left, it didn't have actually a finish thing, so it kind of rolls. And so I pinned that whole edge just so it was lay flat, but I didn't really, I did a few pins in the other edge because it had lace on it. If you can see where that fringe is, there are a few pins in there. So I pinned a lot on the left so I could keep it from rolling. And then on the right, I just did a few pins to hold that lace out a little bit and make so you could really see those holes. So here's an example of pinning some squares. So sometimes we'll make things in squares and sew them together. The nice thing about wool is it will really hold its shape. So if you pin this out to a certain size when you're making squares, you will really want to usually pin them all to the same size. And then when you take them off, they'll stay to that size. And that's how it would make it easier to sew things together. So I had this one square that was a lot smaller than all the other squares that I had pinned or that I had finished. And so these are a picture before blocking, where one is literally like 2.5 inches smaller than the other when I took it off the needles. Then here's a little bit closer up picture. And then I pinned them both out to the exact same size, let them dry. The key is you need to let it dry. You know, here in Colorado, it doesn't take very long to dry. If you're somewhere else where you have more humidity, it might take a little bit longer, but here it doesn't take too long. So I pinned each square, and you can see when I took off the pins, here's a picture of when I took off the pins, see how it stayed that exact same width. It didn't go back to, because it was only about 7.5 inches wide before I pinned it. Another picture. And then I think this is the same square, and that's it. So this is a little bit of just about like how many pins to use, how you could keep it, and how it will actually stay. So that's the beauty of, I love working with wool yarn because it will actually stay really well. All right, let me stop my share. Are there any questions so far before I go back to the actual demonstration of what we're going to do next in blocking this out? You're welcome to unmute and ask your questions. So our piece has been soaking for a while. I'll bring it back up here for you to see. And here's our piece. Now, again, the nice thing I like about the soak is I don't have to wash it out. Sometimes I will wash it out if I get too much, but I don't always wash it out, so it's kind of nice. The next thing I do is I lay out a towel, and I'm going to try to do this so you guys can all see this. It's kind of tricky blocking demonstrations with the little camera. Okay, so I'm just going to lay out a towel, and then all I do is I'm going to take my piece and I'm going to wring it out in the water and try to get out all the water that I can. And I don't want to squeeze and twist it, but I'm going to just try to squeeze as much water out, but don't twist it because you don't want to like ruin the shape of your garment. Okay, so when I get out as much water as I can, set this water aside. And usually I just put things into soak and I'll go off and do some other things. And sometimes I'll come back and push them back down and make sure they're soaking up all the water. And then I'm just going to lay this piece on a towel and I'm going to roll it up in the towel and I'm going to squeeze out the excess water as I go. Just squeeze and squeeze. So since our theme is start to finish your projects, you know, blocking is a really great way to just finish up your projects, be done with them, take pictures of them. And so my towel is pretty wet, actually. It takes out a lot of water when you do that. And I'm going to lay this out. I always like to pin with the right side up, just because I like to see my work, make sure I'm doing, it's going to look good on the right side. And this is why like having a yardstick is really helpful. You can use it to line up the edge. And I don't quite have enough things here, but I just want to kind of show you. Like I would line up this edge and make it in a straight line. So I'm gonna, and you can use pins to help you do this. So I can actually pin my yardstick in a straight line. So I'm just using an outside point to make sure my yardstick is straight. And I'm going to use pins just to keep my yardstick straight. And then I'll just start pinning. So I like to start in the center and work my way out. So I'll start and pin every couple inches and I'll go back from one side to the other. So once you get your first edge, do your long edge first, like, because this is a triangular shaped shawl. So I'm going to do my long edge first. Okay, do each section, just working my way out. You can already see after I soaked it in water, do you see how that loosened up and how nice that, it just looks so much better than it did before. So just working. So I'm about out of room there, so I'm going to leave it like that. And then what you want to do is, because this kind of rolls on the edge here. So I just want to make sure that my point is straight, because this has a point going down here. So I want to keep that straight, and then I would pin this section here. My board's not quite big enough, so I'm going to improvise. And I want to keep this piece straight. And then I would pull this out here. And again, you can use your yardstick, and that way you can use this for a straight edge, and you can keep this really straight. So again, I would start in the middle and going to pin, and I'm really at a loss for space here. Did you get the idea? And so I'd start with my pins wider, and see, this needs more pins. Do you see how it's still rolling up on the edge? And then that's where I would come back in and do more pins. Or you could use blocking wires. And it doesn't, like, I'm not stretching the garment. I'm just pulling it to the width that looks right. You could also use, you should have schematics in your pattern, and you can use it to pin. You can use those schematics and pin it to the same shape. So see, by coming back and filling in, you see how that's going to lay flat now? Because once this dries, that will not roll anymore. So it'll stay nice and straight, and it won't roll up anymore. So that's how you're going to do blocking. Are there any questions?
Yes,
You should block. Go ahead.
I have one. I'm about finished with another square of the vintage Afghan one, the number 14 that has the diamond shapes, and it's most of them are 12, but this one's clearer to 13. My question about blocking, hopefully I can get it to 12. How do I pin that down?
I would try my best to squish it into the 12-inch square. You've already blocked all of your others at 12 inches?
Yeah, most of them, yeah.
Okay.
I haven't blocked them all, but the ones I have are for 12.
Yeah, so this one just kind of turned out looser than the others. When you wet it, it's going to look a little bit scrunched up when you pin it, but you would start your pinning at your corners and pin it into 12, and then kind of just take your fingers and push it in like this, you know, and pin each corner here.
Okay.
And then you're going to just scrunch it up and make it fit into that 12 inches. And then just make sure that it looks nice. It's like laying flat everywhere. You don't want anything poking up or anything. And you'll just have to squish it into that 12 inches.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right.
Any other questions?
We're planning to come up the first week in September, and I had read somewhere that you were just going to have, I think it's Wednesday to Saturday or Wednesday to Sunday open.
Wednesday through Saturday.
Okay, so if I came on to the shop Wednesday or Thursday, it would be open.
Yes, yes, we'll be open after, let's see, what's the date?
This would be September the 1st and 2nd.
Okay, yeah. So starting after, I believe it's August 23rd, we will only be open, right? Or is it the 29th? 29th, August 29th, we'll be open Wednesday through Saturday.
Okay.
We'll be open this whole next week. So we're open tomorrow, Sunday, which is the 22nd, and then we'll be open Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then it's the following weekend where we'll be closed Sunday through Tuesday.
Okay, and then one more thing, I had heard that they're wearing masks again.
Masks are optional at this point. If we are requiring masks, we will put it out in our email, and it will also be posted on our front door.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We can't wait to see you. Is it Donna?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. Nice. We're looking forward to your visit, Donna.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yes. Hi, Paula.
Hi.
Diana Oliver here. I have a question. If you have yarn that is a blend, such as the cotton polyester or cotton wool? Do you use the same procedure?
I do. It will be, it might not hold its shape just as well as wool does, but it will still look nice when you block it. But yes, I use the same procedures. You would want to follow on your tag, like for washing instructions, make sure you read your tag from your yarn and you wash it according to your tag. But you can still definitely lay it out and pin it, for sure.
Okay, and you can use the soak on the blend and the synthetics?
Yes, you can. It's safe for anything you can wash.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Also, in the comments are all the products that we talked about. And then there's also going to be a link to a blog post that Jayanne wrote for us. And it's really helpful. It talks about blocking and might give you some more tips and tricks. So, but thank you for joining us today. We're going to take a break and we're going to get reset up. And Debbie is going to come back at 12:45 for Binding 101.
Okay, thank you, Paula.
Thank you.